We have some Tesla stock breaking news today that is massive, and it's likely causing Tesla's outperformance today. The Cybertruck is now officially in China. This report from Tesla Chan says this Cybertruck successfully registered parallel imports through Tianjin port and was granted an official license plate. The price is 2 million won, and it's 3 times the regular price. With this permit, we look forward to the official sale of the Cybertruck to China in the future. You can also see this thing driving around on Chinese roads, and you can see the Chinese license plate here. So obviously, we do not know when the Cybertruck will be allowed into China in real numbers, but this is a really good first step towards that. And I think even more so than just the Cybertruck contributing to Tesla's deliveries, I think the bigger, benefit for the Cybertruck entering China is the potential halo effect over in China. There's a lot of people in China. There can be a lot of attention on Tesla given by the Cybertruck. If you start to get more of them on the roads, that could lead to better deliveries for the Model 3 and the Model Y, which are going to be a lot more affordable. So I think the halo effect over in, let's say, the United States is going to be pretty dramatic over the next 12 months, but I do think the halo effect in China could be even larger if we did start to get more Cybertrucks into the country. And this may be one of the reasons why Tesla is outperforming today. Tesla stock on a technical basis is above its 50-day moving average and breaking above its 20-day moving average here today, but take a look, you got rejected right at this downtrending trend line, literally to the penny. So things look good, but we gotta break above these trend lines for a larger run. If you break above this higher end trend line around 225, which is not too far off of where we are now, Tesla stock's at $217 per share, give or take, then you're looking at a much larger run. And if the data continues to come in good, showing the economy is doing okay, inflation is falling, the Fed's about to cut rates, and consensus view becomes we're going to have a soft landing, then I think the sky is literally the limit for Tesla, especially around this robotaxi event on October 10th. We also have the election coming up, Kamala Harris economic plan that some people are a little concerned about. I think these can be fear catalysts for markets, at least in the short term, but that's a little bit down the line still. So I think in the very near term, things look really good for Tesla. And as I explained in the last video, there's really not much in store for next week. We really don't have any big catalyst or big data for that matter. So I think Tesla stock could have a green light for the next couple of trading days to move higher. Today, we did get some data that came out that actually did move the markets quite a bit. Building permits came in at 1.396 million. We were expecting 1.43 million, so that was a big miss. Building permits month over month came in at negative 4%. And I guess I didn't think about this, but building permits coming in low can be a bad sign for the construction sector of the economy. So that's kind of what Wall Street said today is, wow, that's a big drop in building permits. Maybe that means less construction jobs. And that's a fair point. You also had housing starts that came in at 1.23 million. We were expecting 1.33 million, and housing starts month over month fell negative 6.8%. The forecast was negative 2%. Now, I will say with building permits month over month, we were expecting negative 0.4%. So we came out at negative 4%. That was 10 times worse than what we were expecting. And that's why you did get a reaction in the S&P here today. That's the reason for the sell-off, potentially weaker activity in construction. That's not going to be great. Now, Michigan consumer sentiment came in at 67.8. We were expecting a number of 66.9, so that actually came in better than expected. 5-year inflation expectations hold steady, as well as 1-year inflation expectations, no change from last month. Both of those coming in line with estimates. Michigan consumer expectations came in at 72.1. We were expecting 68.2. And Michigan current conditions come in at 60.9. We were expecting 62.3. So a miss on current conditions, but better than expected for consumer expectations. Carl over on X says there are now 476,000 new homes for sale in the US, the highest inventory since February 2008. This is according to the Oppie Desk. Wow. I mean, I'm in the market to buy a new house. Hopefully some of this inventory starts to bring down prices. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen, but we can always be optimistic. Goldman Sachs says July housing starts fall sharply in the South. We left our Q3 GDP tracking estimate unchanged at 2.4%. The Atlanta Fed GDP Now tracker did change their estimate though, okay? So we were at 2.9% GDP estimated for Q3 per the Atlanta Fed GDP Now tracker. Yesterday, we had export prices, import prices, a couple other data points, and they took that estimate from 2.9% down to 2.4%. Okay, today's housing starts and basically construction data with building permits took this down from 2.4% down to 2%. Now, the average blue chip consensus on Wall Street is about 1.8% GDP, 1.7% GDP. So you're getting close to where Wall Street is currently at. And again, it's going to be a long time before we get Q3 GDP numbers that are coming out. So all of this data is really important right now, because if we just get bad data and GDP estimates continue to fall, you could see how there could be more growth scares or recession concerns in a month or two from now if GDP is maybe closer to 1% or 0% or perhaps even negative. A lot of people on Wall Street, like CNBC for an example, over the past couple of weeks have mentioned that normally when the Fed starts raising rates, it doesn't get affected or affects our economy for about 10 quarters. And usually when the Fed starts raising rates, it takes about 10 quarters to go into a recession. You are at 10 quarters right now. So I think Wall Street's really starting to pay more attention to the recession risk out there, and that's going to be the biggest driver of stocks. It's not the Fed, it's not inflation. I think the Fed is second up, right? If the Fed cuts rates aggressively, let's say 50 basis points instead of 25, then that's obviously going to be a bigger problem if the Fed needs to cut aggressively. But it's really going to come down to the economic data. If the economic data worsens, larger Fed cuts, the worse off Tesla's going to do, the worse off the markets are going to do. If the economic data does well or does okay, the Fed's able to cut rates smaller amounts, like 25 basis points, stocks will do just fine. Liz Young Thomas on X says bad weather might be skewing the data, but housing data was weak. Housing starts came in at 1.238 million, the lowest level since early 2020. Units under construction falling as a result, which is a concerning sign for construction employment. Fed Goolsbee also had some pretty shocking things to say as well today. He says some leading indicators of recession are flashing warnings. Goolsbee says when labor market starts to turn, it tends to worsen fast. He also says we want the job market to stabilize. There are concerns it'll weaken more. He also says GDP is still pretty strong and there are pockets of strength in the economy. And to be honest, the strength in this economy is anything that has to do with government spending. And that's basically it. GDP is strong because of government spending and inventories. I can't really think of any other part of the economy that is strong besides areas that are reliant on government spending. I guess you could say semiconductors at this point. That area could still be doing okay. But we will know more when Nvidia reports earnings. 10-year Treasury yields today are down about 2 basis points to 3.90%. Tesla has introduced a brand new textile interior option exclusively for the Model 3 rear-wheel drive in Mexico. This includes gray textile seats and standard features. It is now the only interior option available on the Model 3 rear-wheel drive for the Mexico market. Tesla has also added the core wheels, and they are now available on the configurator in the US for all-wheel drive Tesla Cybertrucks. And apparently, Shaq says he's missing his Cybertruck, so instead of shipping his Cybertruck across the country, essentially, he's just going to get a new one. He says, quote, "I'm missing my Cybertruck, but I don't want to ship it from Vegas to Atlanta, so I'm going to just go ahead and buy another one." Cybertruck official X account says, "Understandable." We'll go ahead and reshare that. You know, and this is one of those weird things that I keep talking about. People in real life that don't know about markets, they don't know even what a definition of a recession is. They just think the economy is bad, okay? Unusual Whales reports 3 out of 5 Americans, so the majority of Americans, think the U.S. is in a recession, as per a firm. 55% believe the economy is shrinking, and 56% think the U.S. is experiencing a recession, even though the broadest measure of the economy, gross domestic product, GDP, has been growing, which, as David Sommers here on X says, the level of uptick in the unemployment rate in recent months is consistent with increases historically that coincided with the onset of recessions, which is true, which is to Goolsby's point that he made earlier. When you see a weakening in the labor market, in the unemployment rate rising, it does tend to not stop there, right? The unemployment rate does not tend to just stay sideways or stagnant for extreme periods in time. It tends to go up a lot, or it tends to consistently fall, okay? We were at a very low place. You've started to rise pretty dramatically. You're probably going to continue to rise. That's just the fact of the matter here. It would be virtually unprecedented if the unemployment rate were to actually fall from here. We just have never really seen that happen before. I guess, if you will, the last time that did happen, something similar, was over here in the 60s, when you kind of bottomed at about 4% unemployment. You went up a little bit to about maybe 4.5%, 4.3%, and then fell back down to like 3%. It just doesn't happen all that often. Tesla has launched a Cybertruck cooler with stainless steel cladding for $700. This does fit 90 canned beverages, so it does seem like a decently large size. Bard analyst Ben Callow on Tesla Energy says, quote, "Its contribution to the company's valuation should not be underestimated. Rapid growth in deployments and gross margins exceeded those of the automotive business have begun shifting attention to this component of the company and raised the question of the energy segment's contribution to Tesla's valuation. Bard has an outperform rating and a $280 price target for Tesla stock, but notes that the energy segment's valuation is not specifically broken out in the price target." As far as option orders today in Tesla stock via hedge funds institutions, you have seen 15 different trades totaling $2.29 million with a positive order value of 35%. Tesla's short interest of free float sitting at 3.12%. You have $18.57 billion currently sold short in Tesla, totaling 86.72 million shares. Here on the day today, you do have borrowed shares of 1.14 million, return shares 752,000. That means it does look like about 400,000 shares are actually on net being sold short today. And I think that's just as we're approaching really the key level of resistance at this point, around $220 per share. I think hedge funds and institutions feel a little bit more comfortable shorting Tesla around that price. Tesla's sentiment over on StockTwits, which is a pretty good way to gauge retail investor sentiment, is sitting at 55, which is bullish. Yesterday, you were at 63, which was bullish. So not as bullish today as yesterday, but it's Friday. A lot of people just take Friday off and go enjoy their, their early weekend. If if you will. Message volume today is normal at 54. Yesterday it was high at 56, and the participation ratio today is high at 55. Google Trends data for full self-driving remains at 20, continues to be strong. Tesla also continues to run about 4,000 different ads with Google. That's pretty consistent with what we've seen for now, like 2 months. Global inventory numbers are continuing to rise for the Model Y, now coming in at about 7,400, the Model 3 coming in at 6,300, the Model X at 3,800, and the Model S at 2,700. Google Trends data for the Tesla lineup shows the Model Y at 25, the Model 3 at 25, the Model S at 10, the Model X at 8, and the Cybertruck at 61. The percent of stocks currently trading above their 50-day moving average is actually up to almost 57% today. You're up 1.78%. So 1.78% of all stocks out there are breaking above their 50-day moving average. It's actually not a terrible day. That's not a terrible sign for markets. The SPY is back to $552.50 or so. You're down about 0.1% at the time of recording this video. You've basically filled the entire gap that you've seen, from, what was this, August 1st. So you're back up near the highs, up only about 2% from new all-time highs. This was actually the best 6-day rally you have seen since 2022. So how much upside is left? I don't know. I think if you look at the, broader S&P or SPY, there's not that much upside left that is actually supported, right? Via fundamentals. I think it just doesn't make a lot of sense for the S&P to go higher from here. But I do think a broader rotation into stocks that have not participated over the last 3 years, that are not trading at all-time highs, maybe a Tesla, maybe that's a PayPal, maybe that's some biopharma, maybe that's a CVS or Dollar General or some of these other stocks that have not done anything over the past couple of years. They could start to participate, and maybe big tech just takes a little bit of a, back step here, and that's how you could see a broadening out of our markets. Stocks broadly continue higher, but the S&P not really do a whole lot of anything. Ultimately, I think that's going to come down to NVIDIA earnings, which are not next week, but the week after that. Same is true for the Jackson Hole Economic Symposium. That's not next week. That's the week after that. So 2 weeks from now is going to be a huge week. But from now until then, it's really hard to say what's going to happen for markets or for Tesla specifically, because we just don't have really any catalyst for next week. But we will talk about that more in the next video. That is all you need to know for this video. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think about this information down below in the comments section. If you guys do want to come trade with us live in real time as well, check out that link down below in the description of this video. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.